1 Samuel chapter 30. Today, we start a series, and I thought about so many possible things to title this series. But today we're going to entitle it, our series entitled, Coming Back. And I'm calling it Coming Back for two reasons. David is going to come back physically. He's going to come back physically in chapter 30 of 1 Samuel, and he's going to find an old enemy, the Amalekites. By the way, old enemies never die. They just go in hiding and they will come back. Sir, you have an old enemy called alcohol. It never dies. It just goes in hiding and it finally will come back and will test you again. But he will find an old enemy when he is gone, will come in and they will ride away and take his family and all of his possessions, everything he's fighting for. David will come back and find a destroyed life left behind. And then David is ultimately, though, and more importantly, going to come back spiritually. David has spent years now in the land of the Philistines, and he has spent years away from God's will and away from where he is supposed to be. And David is finally ready to come back to God. And he's going to ask God to forgive him. And he's going to ask God to restore him. And he's going to ask God to reuse him. And the message I want you to get today before we even get started is this, is that God will allow you to come back. You are here and you're a child of God, but you have not been serving Jesus. Let's just be honest with it. You have not been following close. You've gotten involved in maybe some issues and some sin, and maybe even allowed your heart to be sort of corrupted by the world, and you're far from God. May I say to you this, God is not done with you. It may be years since you've been in church. It may be years since you've prayed. It may be years since you've even been sober. God is not done with you today. God is asking for you to come back. Because just like David, he will forgive you. Just like David, he will restore you. And just like David, I promise you, he will reuse you. Amen? But just like grieving, the process of grieving has steps you go through. So does coming back to God have steps. And the first thing David's going to realize, he's going to realize his life was not honoring God. And that's what we're going to see today. If you're taking notes today as we begin, our one simple truth is this. My life will either fully honor God or fully dishonor God. Listen, there is no middle ground. We sort of like to split hairs, and we sort of like to put percentages. Well, this week I'm about 90% in with Jesus, but there's a 10% of me that's still not really. No, it's either 100% honoring God or it's 100% dishonoring God. We enjoy looking at other people and comparing ourselves to other people. We enjoy this because, listen, on whole, most of you come out pretty good to the average person in Ottawa. On whole, most of you come out pretty good to the average American. In this room, there are very few addicts. There are some. In this room, there are very few people who have cheated on their wives. In this room, there are very few people who have cheated even on their taxes. On whole, some of you come out really good. You are great citizens. You are great neighbors. But listen, God is not going to compare you to other people. God is comparing you to Jesus. And so today your life will either fully honor God or it will fully dishonor God. I'm reminded of this joke I want to read to you. It's pretty good, so you better laugh. How we like to compare ourselves to other people. It's entitled, Letter to Dad. A girl's letter to Dad. A father passing by his teenage daughter's bedroom was astonished to see the bed was nicely made and everything was neat and tidy. Then he saw an envelope propped up prominently on the middle and the center of the pillow, and it was addressed with big letters, Dad. With the worst presumptions, he opened the letter, opened the envelope to find and read this letter that he read in trembling hands. And it said this from his teenage girl. Dear Dad, it is with great regret and sorrow that I am writing you. I am leaving home. I had to elope with my boyfriend, Sam, because I wanted to avoid the scene with you and Mom. I've been finding real passion with Sam, and he is really nice to me. I know when you meet, you'll like him, even with all his piercings, tattoos, and motorcycle clothes. But it is not only the passion, Dad. I'm pregnant. And Sam said he wants me to have the child and that we can be happy together. Even though Sam is much older than me and isn't 42, it's not that old these days, and has no money, really, these things shouldn't change anything in the way of our relationship. Don't you agree, Dad? Sam has a great CD and MP3 collection. He already owns a trailer in the woods and has a stack of firewoods for the whole winter for us. It's true that he has other girlfriends as well, but I know he'll be faithful to me once we're married and we're on our own. He wants me to have more children and be with me, and that's not just my dreams, but it's his dreams too. Sam taught me that marijuana doesn't really hurt anyone, and he'll be growing it for us, and we'll trade it with our friends for cocaine and ecstasy, the things that we want. In the meantime, we'll pray for a cure, that science will give us a cure to find a cure for all of Sam's STDs so he can get better. Because Sam sure does deserve it. Don't worry, Dad. I'm 15 years old now, and I know to take care of myself. Someday I'm sure we'll get back to visit so you can get to know all of your many grandchildren. Your loving daughter, Rosie. At the bottom of the page was a P.S. With hands trembling, the father turned over the sheet and he read this. P.S. Dad, none of the above is true. I'm over at the neighbor's house. I just wanted to remind you that things are a lot worse in life than my report card that is in my desk drawer. Please sign it and call when it is safe to come home. See, we like to compare ourselves to other people because I'm sure most of you come out pretty good when you compare yourself to other people. But God is not comparing you to other people. God is looking today at your soul and at your spiritual condition. See, as I'm talking to you today, some of you are thinking to yourself, I know I have problems. I know I'm bad. I know I've got issues, but I'm not as bad. Stop. Your life today is either fully honoring God or it is fully dishonoring God. Amen? You need to understand this, that God sent His Son to die for you so that you could be saved. But you need to also understand that He is interested in you today. And He deeply wants to have that deep, fulfilling relationship with you. David is going to have three things happen to him. And they are the three things that happen when our life does not honor God. If you're taking notes, number one, the possessions you desire will be destroyed. 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 1, read along what happens to David. And it came to pass when David, by the way, it always comes to pass. It came to pass when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day. The third day is a day of decisions. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but I find oftentimes the third day is a time of decision. Today is your third day. Today is your day of decision. Today God is bringing you back to Him and showing you the disaster of your life, the disaster of your spiritual condition. Today is your third day. That the Amalekites, an old enemy of David, had invaded the south and Ziklag and had smitten and burned Ziklag and burned it with fire. Everything David thought was important, all the stuff he had fought so hard for, everything he betrayed his nation for, everything that he lived far from God for, everything that he did that brought shame to God, but yet that brought David these possessions, all of his stuff is gone. May I simply ask you this easy question, what are you working for today? Because one day, whatever it is, it will be gone. And I have found in my life that possessions, that cars, that money can easily and quickly be taken away from you. And there is nothing in this world that will stay with you for all eternity, for all of your life. I have found nothing greater than God. He will never leave you nor turn His back on you. But we walk away from Him. Young people, listen to me. Don't buy the lie. Don't buy the lie that stuff, the lie that David just bought, the lie that stuff will bring you peace. It may bring you moments of pleasure, but it will not bring you peace. Listen, God is all about small moments of preparation that lead to a lifetime of joy and excitement. I could use the illustration of a physical relationship with a man and a woman. Young people, the statistics are overwhelming. Not Christian statistics, world statistics. The people who limit their sexual partners, the people who do this crazy thing about only having one partner when they get married, talk about in their 50s and 60s how great of an experience they are still having. But the people who share this great gift and destroy that possibility talk about in their 30s and 40s about how difficult it is in their marriage. God is all about small lead to incredible lifetime moments of joy. But Satan is the opposite. Satan is about small moments of pleasure. Hey, take a shot of heroin. Listen, it's got to be a good thing. I've never done it, but it's got to be a good thing to do meth. So many people do it. I mean, it's just got to be, I guess. But Satan's all about small moments of pleasure that lead to lifetime moments of disappointment and defeat and destruction. Do you see the opposite, young people? David bought the lie of a small moment of pleasure, that material possessions and things and position would bring him great joy and bring him peace. And when he is finding out that Satan is a liar, and he's finding out that everything he told him was not true, and now he has found out that everything Satan promised him, everything this world has to offer, has been quickly and quickly destroyed, and he has nothing.
That's right.
Don't buy the lie, young people.
Give an example if you're taking notes. All that really matters in life is the stuff you can put your arms around. All that really matters in life is the stuff you can put your arms around. And what I mean by that stuff, some of you got it. You're sitting by your wife and you're like, oh, that was sweet. Give them a nice meal today. What I mean is not the stuff you can physically touch. I mean the people you love. Come here, Bill. Sucker. Come here. I mean people you put your arms around. All that matters are the things and the stuff you can put your arms around. When you get the materialistic things wrong, you will get your family wrong too. This is Dad, you're going to learn, we're going to talk about you for here for a second, especially fathers, because you do this more than anybody. When you get materialism wrong, you will get your family wrong too. And the irony, David did this all. He told himself the lie, I'm doing this for my family. You will tell yourself, like, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this all for my family. And what will happen is the destruction of your family. Number two, if you're taking notes, when your life doesn't honor God, the family you forsook will be gone. Look at verse 2. And had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away and went their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captive. Was it worth it, David? Was it worth it? Hey, everybody who does meth, it was a great night. Man, it was an amazing feeling, Pastor Steve. Yeah. Was it worth it now, after years you've lost your family? And see, it's easy to pick on it, because I'm sure in this crowd, in the congregation like this, there's very few of you are doing meth. But how about for David? David didn't do it for drugs. He didn't do it for alcohol. David did it for possessions. He did it for materialistic things. At this moment, as we read through this verse, if you don't add the emotion and see the emotion that's taking place here, you are missing out on so much of the Scripture. How empty is David right now? How hurt is he? If you're taking notes, I couldn't think of any better way to say it than this. A huge home with no one in it is just as empty as a matchbox with nothing in it. A huge home that has no one in it, no one that loves you, is just as empty as a matchbox with nothing in it. And the third thing, when my life doesn't honor God, what did I do wrong? Oops, I didn't put it in there, so just pretend like I have it. The third thing, when our life doesn't honor God, the friends you trusted will be against you. The friends you trusted will be against you. Young people, listen to this verse. Watch what happens. These are all the people who were doing the bad things with David, right? There's honor amongst thieves, lie. All those, listen, here it is. Here's what you'll find out. The people that talk you into doing crack won't be there when your life is destroyed. In fact, the people that talk you into doing drugs, they will quickly turn you into the police to get themselves out of jail. Watch what happens here with David. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no power to weep. I've been there, you've been there, crying out, your heart is broken, you're grieved. Verse 5, and David's two wives were taken captive, and a home, the Jezreelites. She's not the one I want to focus on. And Abigail, remember Abigail of 1 Samuel 25 we spent weeks on? The wife of Nabal the Carmite. Can I say this? Abigail deserves better than this. We saw in chapter 25 what an amazing, beautiful on the outside, but beautiful on the inside, strong, powerful woman of God she was. And she was saved and rescued from the brute Nabal, and she marries David, and here she is. And the very worst thing, listen to me, the very worst thing I can say about David is this: Nabal never did this to Abigail. In all of the garbage that Nabal was, and all the bad ways he treated her, and all the horrible husband and leader he was in his life, Nabal never left her homeless and captured and carried off in a strange land. And the worst thing that the world can say about us as Christians is this: they take better care of their senior parents than most Christians. The worst thing the world can say is they are kinder to people than most believers. And the worst thing they can say is they love people more than people who claim to be saved. There you go. The world has to see a difference in us, a different outcome of our life, before it would ever consider being one of us. Look at verse 6. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him. Wait. These are the people he was just in sin with. These are the people he was just far from God. How could they quickly turn their backs on him? Because the soul of the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. They followed David into sin. They enjoyed the good times at Ziklag. They enjoyed the good times with Achish. But as soon as times got hard, they talked of stoning David. Pastor Steve, you get kind of mean, and I know, I'm sorry. And lastly, selfless submission. Two go hand in hand. Young people, look at it. Honor thy father and mother. You want, we got somebody. All right. Send me the emails. Feel free to do it. But I thank God I didn't have time out when I was a kid. Time out sounds so great. I mean, I get to go to my room and sit with all my toys and the internet and everything. That would be great. You know what reason why we have such kids that are insane today? Acting like idiots and running around. Go to the mall, go to Walmart, look at these kids and just spend time and go, man, what a snot-nosed little brat. You know why? Because they don't honor their parents. Why do they don't honor their parents? Because there's not enough parents worth honoring. What you need to do, the first step to coming back to God is you need to know God. And you know God by humbly admitting that you cannot save yourself and that God sent His Son to die for you. Today, will you humble yourself? The pastor went to an elder sister, a widow in the congregation, to discuss some problems with her lifestyle. He says this: "Sister, you've been setting a rather bad example for some of the younger generation of the flock. You've been married 4 times in just a few years, and I'm here to question, do you know what you are doing?" Well, the sister said this: well, one was a banker, the other an actor, the other a preacher, and afterwards a mortician. And she said, "Brad, I knew exactly what I was doing. See, one was for the money, one was for the show, one was to get ready, and one was to go." You need to be ready to go today. You won't get to heaven unless you know Jesus. You won't experience coming back to God till you finally humble yourself. Here's the thing about Jesus, and here's the thing about God. All the mistakes you made, everything, come back to God, humble yourself. You made huge mistakes in the past. Today you come back to God and you start over. So, Pastor, I just don't think that can happen. This is David. David, a man after God's own heart. David, who it will be David's throne that Jesus will sit on, and Jesus will be in the lineage of David. It is David who will do what he did with Bathsheba. David makes mistake after mistake in his life, and repeatedly God forgives him. Repeatedly God reuses him. Repeatedly God restores him. If you are here today and far from God, whether it be a little or a lot, may I challenge you today to come back to God, because God is ready with open arms to take you. first time in David's life, he will cry out to God in verse 6. And David encouraged himself in the Lord, his God. Don't you miss praising God? Don't you miss that close relationship? I'm going to close with this one little thought. Going in is more difficult than coming out. Going in is more difficult than coming out. I'll give you an example. Those of you that work out, the gym. Man, you find all sorts of excuses not to go work out, not to run on the treadmill, not to do everything. You find excuse after excuse, and you finally get in there, and it's like, oh, and then some annoying dude will be like, hey, how you doing? And you're like, oh, I don't want to see people. I don't even want to be here. And they'll feel like, oh, let's go work out. Now maybe I'll spot you. And you start lifting, or you start running on the treadmill. After you start going through it, you start feeling better, don't you? You say, man, I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I came. And by the time you leave, you're like, everyone should work out. Work out, people. You should all be at the gym. Look at how fat and snobby thou art. And you sort of become a gym and workout evangelist. You're like, listen, you need to do it. It's a great thing. Because going in is more difficult than coming out. How about the dentist? I mean, seriously, who wakes up that morning and your wife tells you what you got to do? Oh, I get to have a tooth pulled? Oh, I get to go to the dentist? Even if your teeth are good, they still stick those things in your teeth and pull on them and everything. One of these days, I just like to grab that and say, well, let me try it on you. But you go into the dentist and your teeth are whatever they are, and you leave and they're bright and smiling, and you're just like, look at my teeth. Look how great they are. Isn't that the same with God? I mean, coming in today was hard. And taking that first step, whether it be to pray at the invitation, or whether it just be to end a relationship you shouldn't have, or whether it be to go to God and with a humble knee at home and pray with your wife and say, man, we made mistakes, but today we're going to get it right. Whatever that situation is, going in is very difficult. But coming out is worth it. Today, I want to challenge you that the good news of Jesus is so good because the bad is so bad. And you can come back because God still loves you.
Right.
And He will use you, He will forgive you, and He will restore you. Bow your head and close your eyes.